Actually, what if I can do this? And then send it to her. All right, it looks like I am live. Super excited to be here. Let me go in here and make sure that I'm live. What's going on? Let's see. Hang on, I'm coming, y'all. I just need to see if I'm live. What do I look like on the screen? Let's see. I cannot find it. Okay, I'm supposed to be live. But I honestly cannot see me. Anybody out there that can see me? Because I can't. Let's see, maybe I should do a reset. Don't even say I'm live. What in the world is going on? Let me check YouTube. Okay. All right. Apparently, I'm not live on Facebook. I don't know what is going on. Apparently, I'm not live on Facebook. I don't know what is going on. Apparently, I'm not live on Facebook. I don't know. So, I'm going to go on anyway. Just going to move on. Look one more time, just to satisfy myself, y'all. Look, I'm not live on Facebook. Okay, so I'm going to shut that off. Okay. All right, so I'm live on YouTube, and this is day number 2 of 30 because I have decided to challenge myself to come live on YouTube so that I can build over here and connect with my audience over here. So today, um, I am doing this video on living your life on your own terms. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing this video on living your life on your own terms. And so I wanted to really talk about what that looks like and what that feels like and what that means to me. So I know that a lot of women, especially, for me, I feel like I'm on my second part of life because I'm over 50. And I know that, you know, as you age and as you get older, things change for you in your life. And so, the things that you used to do probably easier in the past, possibly maybe not. And then also you grow and you get wiser and you learn more and, you get better because Maya Angelou said that when you know better, then you do better. And as you get older, hopefully you start learning a thing or two and you start realizing that everything is not always what it seems, that sometimes you need to make changes and shifts. Sometimes you can't just continue to be the same person that you've been, and sometimes you need to change you. Sometimes you need to change your environment. Sometimes you need to make different choices. And so as we grow and we learn that, we begin to really start living life on our own merit and deciding what we're going to do, what we're going to accept in our life. what type of trauma are we going to heal from? Because newsflash, pretty much everybody in the world has had some type of trauma to live through, you know. And my husband and I talk a lot about the fact that, you know, they have finally decided that racism is a trauma. And it is. Racism is a trauma. Sexism is a trauma. If you had to deal with situations where people were unkind to you or where you got beat down, by another person of another, race or something like that, that's trauma. And so as you live through different things and as we live through different things in different centuries, because the trauma that I experienced growing up was different from the trauma that probably my parents experienced growing up. And their trauma was different from their parents, the things that they experienced growing up. And then, as we go farther back, especially for African Americans in this country, the trauma that our ancestors experienced is nothing like any trauma that we have experienced. Even if we feel like we've been through a lot in our life, and some of us have been through a lot, but you can begin to release that, and you can also begin to release that from your ancestors. And so when you begin to do that, when you begin to connect with your source and you begin to release that from your nervous system, because newsflash, that has been passed down in our nervous system. The traumas that our ancestors experienced were passed down in our nervous systems, and they're passed down in our cells, and they're passed down, in the way that we do things. Because sometimes as you start looking back and as you start seeing that some of the things that you do, some of the ways that you think are based on some of the traumas that our ancestors went through. And I'm speaking from an African American perspective just because that is who I am. Now, I know that other races and other cultures have had different experiences as well that were traumatic in history. And I'm not negating any of those experiences, but I can only speak from my experiences. I can only speak from the perspective of myself. I cannot speak from the perspective of other people. And so that I say that to qualify that, because I hear a lot of times that people say, "Oh, well, the African American perspective, is not the only perspective," and no, it's not, but it's mine, so I can speak to that. So when you begin to really live consciously on purpose, is when you begin to live your life on your own terms. You begin to understand that you have been living the law of attraction, even if you don't think so. And even if you don't think that things are happening in your life as a result of the things that you have created. We are creators. This is what we were designed to be. God created us in the likeness and the image of them. And so we are creators. If God was a creator, then we are designed to be creators. And so when you start to really understand that and you start to really get that in your head and it starts to really resonate to you, and you start to really understand that you are a creator, there's nothing that will stop you. And you will really begin to live your life on your own terms. You'll begin to really shut things down that don't resonate. You'll begin to shut things down that don't resonate in your life. You'll begin to remove people in your life, people, places, things, situation, and energies from your life that is time for you to remove. And many times we get that inclination. Like, I'm going to share a story. When I was married to my first husband, I tried really hard to stay in that marriage. And there were several reasons why I tried. One reason was because I came from a broken home, or a marriage, a divorce family. So in my mind, even though my mother remarried, my father remarried, my mother remarried, and they remarried beautiful people. And even though that happened, I still in my mind felt like maybe it was my fault that, my parents had split up, even though I was a little bit of thing. I was probably, I don't even know how old I was, 3, 4, 5, somewhere around there that they divorced. And so in my mind, I somewhere I knew and I thought that it was because of me that they split up. Now, of course, it wasn't that had nothing. I had nothing to do with that situation. But as a child, in my mind, this is where I went with that. So for years, I thought that, and I didn't really have anybody that I felt comfortable talking to about that, you know. And the thing is I felt so comfortable talking to my grandmother about pretty much everything, but for some reason, I didn't feel comfortable talking to her about that. And I think because in my mind, I thought I was an anomaly because most people in my family came from a two-parent home and they were still married, you know, for years and years. You know, my grandparents were married for 60 some years or whatever. And, you know, and at that time, I think I didn't know that my grandmother had been married before, you know, and so, you know, I thought about this and I thought, okay, I don't even know how to explain what I'm feeling, you know, because nobody talked to me about it, you know, and no shade on my mom. I'm just saying I didn't have that experience because I believe that, you know, where she was at the time, she was hurt by that situation, I can imagine. And I think that they felt like, you know, I was too young to actually understand and all of this kind of stuff. I don't know what their reasons were, either one of them. I just know that I didn't get talked to about that. And so it caused me to create in my own mind the scenarios that I thought about. And so, fast forward, this actually was something that I thought about when I was married to my first husband and I had already had my kids. And I thought, okay, I don't really want my children to go through what I went through in my mind, where I'm thinking and creating all these scenarios that typically most of them were not right, you know, but these are the things that I created in my child mind to help me to understand and move forward with it because I felt hurt because I love my daddy. You know, I was a daddy's girl and I still am. Just that I'm just a different daddy's girl. You know, and just because he was there for me, you know, he was there. You know, he stepped in and he, you know, loved me like I needed to be loved. You know, and I thank God every day, you know, for him. So I really did. But I didn't want my children to go through that, you know. And I knew that, you know, once I got out of that, if I was to get out of that relationship, I needed time to heal. You know, I wasn't one of those women that was just going to jump from man to man because that's not healthy, you know. And I really didn't even believe in that. And so, you know, so I stayed in that marriage for 20 years, you know, because I that was one of the things that drove me for in that way because I felt I don't want them to go through, you know, some of the things, you know. And I had a discussion with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about kids and, you know, and how we, you know, went to so many different schools and how it was hard to make connections and we didn't want our children to go through that. And so she's dealing with that now. And I was sharing with her how I dealt with that. You know, we moved a lot when my kids were growing up, but we moved in the same district. So I stayed in the same school district so my kids could go to the same schools because I didn't want, you know, them ping ponging like I did. Even though, you know, I turned out okay, you know, but still I remember not, you know, being able to really make connections with people. And that is something that I have worked on after I was an adult when I realized that that was something that I dealt with because I just, you know, when you move like that, back in those days, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have, you know, cell phones where we could text, and, you know, we didn't have Zoom where we could do Zoom calls, all this kind of stuff. You just either had to write a letter or you had to call. And if you called, you know, long distance, you get your ass beat. You know, so that was not something that we did. So we didn't have easy ways like they have now to stay connected with people. And so that was something that I, you know, typically um, did not want for my children. And so that was something that, you know, was important to me, you know. And so as I moved forward in that time when it came to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore, you know, I prayed, y'all. I prayed for a year and asked God for help, you know, with that marriage. I didn't know what else to do because I was miserable. And I tried really hard. I went to church and I prayed. We had sought counseling with our pastors, which anyway, you know, but the thing is about counseling is both people have to want it. Everyone has to participate. And so if both people don't want it, counseling is a waste of time and money and energy. And so that's what it was for us. And so I put this pressure on myself to stay in this space, you know, with the man that at that time I did not feel like he loved me. And so for me, I'm a Scorpio and I need love and I love hard. So when I love people and I expect that from people who love me. And so the thing about it is, though, you can't get love from somebody that does not know how to love, or that has not does not understand how to feel love and how to give love and what love even is. And I wanted unconditional love, and that was what I put out there into the universe. That's what I told God as I prayed. Because, the thing about me, y'all, is I have always been a prayer warrior. Always been a prayer warrior. Always been a prayer warrior. I pray all the time. I still do. And so I needed to understand, that everything was going to be okay when I decided that it was time for me to leave that relationship. 20 years is a long time, and my children, they were just about grown. I think when we separated, they were 15 and 17. I think by the time we got divorced, I think that, let me see, I think they were 17 and 19, something like that. But, I felt like, maybe at that point it would be okay, because they were older, and I wasn't planning to, be dating all around kids, because I don't believe in that either. Now, I was not a person that, believed in bringing all kind of strange people around my children, because there's too many crazy things going on and you don't always know. And a lot of times, we don't always listen to our intuition that would tell us if this person was somebody that was good for us, somebody that could be around our children. And then my thing was, if I wasn't going to be with them, I didn't want my children meeting them. It was just, if I didn't intend to be with them, I didn't want my children doing that. I wasn't interested in that. But that's me. That is the way that I thought, and that was how I was thinking. And so when you get to that place and you get, where you are ready, where you are ready um to live life on your own terms, what will you do? What will it take for you? Like I knew I tried so hard, y'all, with my first marriage. I left him probably, I think, 3 times, and I went back every time because I would pray and God would tell me to go back, and so I would go back. And so, I tried. It wasn't like I just, I wasn't one of those women that just, give up on relationships. I believe that, especially because I have my children and all that stuff. And, so I believe that, it was worth a try. Plus, I'd made this commitment, but then when it gets to the point where it's time for you to move on, it's time for you to begin to really start living your life on your terms. Now, what happened for me is um after I got divorced, I think I was there a couple more years, and I always wanted to move and leave because it was time for me to do some different things, and I need variety, because that is who I am. I need change. I've always been that way. And so I had been praying and I had been asking God, what did I need to do? Because I knew that it was time for me to leave this place. I knew that this was my time. And so God spoke to me in the middle of the night. One night I was at work and I heard this voice say, it's time for you to leave this place. And so as I started diving into that, because of course I asked questions, I was like, okay, where am I going? All this stuff. And as I started diving into it, it made me know and realize that, my time there was up. And so I had friends that told me, God wouldn't speak to you and tell you to go someplace where you didn't have a job and you didn't know nobody and all this stuff. But I beg to differ. And I actually shared with them that, I don't know what Bible they're reading, but in the Bible, God told several people Abraham was the first that it was time for him to go and leave this place and go to a land he was going to show him, and he was going to make his name great, and he was going to prosper him. And so that was what I decided was my calling. I felt that that was what God was sharing with me, that it was time for me to go, and he was going to bless me, and he was going to, make my name great, and he was going to do beautiful things in my life. And so that was my calling. And so that was what I did. I left. I packed my car, talked to my kids. I said, it's time for mama to go. My kids were grown, y'all. So I didn't leave babies. I left grown kids, but it was time for me to go. And what's amazing is they all left. After I left, one by one, they left, and so it was really an amazing thing. And I almost felt like I was an example for them, because I think they felt like if my mama can do it, I can do it, and I was grateful for that and so excited. And so I decided that it was time for me to live my life on my terms. Now, part of the story, y'all, is I left with an astronomical car note. I had just bought my car when I drove it across the country. I mean, I think my car was 6, 7, 8 months old, something like that. And I drove it across the country. Had a car note from hell, y'all, but I'm finding out now that it really wasn't that bad compared to some of the car notes that people have now. But at that time, I thought it was astronomical. But I took a leap of faith. I listened to the Holy Spirit. I listened to my guides, that came and spoke to me and supported me. I listened to my angels that were surrounding me, and I left. I didn't listen to anybody else's voices. I heard people say, well, maybe you should wait. Maybe you should this. Maybe you should that. It was time to go. And so I left. I drove across the country with, I think, about $500 is about what I had. And I said, it's going to take me there and I'm going to be all right. And I had a place to stay. My cousin invited me out, and I hadn't actually seen her probably in a couple of decades, but we're who we are, and we grew up, really close. And so, she invited me out. And so I went out, stayed with her for 6 months. And then I think almost to the day. And then I moved out into these suites because I needed some privacy and I needed some peace and I needed, some joy and I needed some love. And for me, y'all, if you don't know me, peace is priceless to me. You cannot put a price on it. I will not put a price on my peace. And so I left and I went. I had to go. And so that was the beginning of me starting to live life on my terms and really, starting to learn how to enjoy life, because I hadn't enjoyed a lot of life at that up to that point, because I had a lot of shit going on, with my marriage. And then, my kids came and stuff. And so, you're doing what you got to do. Sometimes you do what you got to do, but not what you want to do. And so I was getting to a place where I was getting tired of that, but I didn't really know how to make a change and how to shift until I heard that voice that spoke to me, and said, it's time for you to leave this place. And that actually ignited so much within me that it's time for me to leave this place. I mean, it was just such an amazing time for me, and I was just at a place where I knew that it was time. You know, I knew that this is what, I had to do, making those shifts. And so as I began to make those shifts, other things in my life started to show up, and one of them was my amazing husband. I actually met him when I made that cross country move in Arizona. And we both had been through stuff in our previous relationships, and we both had stuff that we dealt with, and things that we had to heal from, and things that we needed to shift in our lives. And so when we met, it actually was a time when I was not looking to meet anybody. To be honest, I was looking to meet Tammy. I was looking to meet me. I was looking to see the star that was me. I was looking to see that person that was inside of me that wanted big things. That person that I had repressed because I was depressed because I didn't do the things that I felt like I needed to do in the world, because I had big destinies. I had huge dreams. And I felt like I had not done the things that I was put here on this planet to do. Because we all have destinies and things we're put on this planet to do. Some of us are destined to be mothers, and I apparently was destined to be one. And so that was one thing that I did appreciate about it. But I felt like I was called to make an impact on this planet. And I felt, bad because I hadn't done that. And I think I was in my 40s, my late 40s by that time. And I was really feeling like, oh my God, is my life over and I didn't make the impact that I came here to make on this planet? I didn't touch the lives that I'm supposed to touch, because I've known that I was a healer since I was about 3 years old. I knew that I was a healer, but it's taken me to get to this point now to become and to step in and to embody the type of healer that I am. Even though I worked in the medical field, and so I felt like I did do some healing as a nurse. I did do some healing, and even as a CNA, because I was a CNA before I was a nurse. And so even at that level, I still knew, that I was a healer and I did help people. And I know that it's a part of my ministry on this earth. I'm part of, I would say I have people that my patients used to call me their angel, because I would just drop in, especially because I worked a lot of times, agency and different things. So I would work different places. I would work, sometimes I work 2 or 3 places at the same time. Like I would work one hospital and then I work another facility, then I work at rehab, and then sometimes I did some home health, and I did all kinds of things, because I like variety. And I feel myself getting stuck, I gotta move. So that's being said, I knew that there was another level of healing that I was supposed to do, because I have healing in my hands. I always have. I can touch people and I can feel the healing going through them. And it's been like that for me all my life. But I have hid in the closet from it, and I have shoved it down. I have repressed those feelings that I felt, knowing that the healing just wanted to come out of me. So I felt so disappointed in myself. And I knew that there was something else for me, and there was another level, and there was more that I'm supposed to do in this planet. And so I started writing books. So I wrote a few books. Let me see. Yeah, I have them here. So I wrote this book first, Unchain Me Mama. And I'll put it in the description how you can get it. But there I am on the back of the blind. And it was a anthology that we wrote. There were 9 of us. We wrote this anthology, and it was a book on mothers. And so it took me to a place where it helped to heal the relationship that I have with my mother even today. And so that was the book that actually was the catalyst to help to heal that relationship. And so I'm so proud of it, and I'm so excited and happy to have done it. And it was also a bestseller. And so that was my journey into, creating an impact that I knew that I was supposed to do in this world, because I had always wanted to be a writer, but I got, no encouragement. And I actually got a lot of discouragement from, people that love you, that say, things like, writers are starving artists. You need to do something where you can make money, while you're right, and all this other kind of stuff. And so then I wrote this book, which is part of my story, is a part of my memoir, Walking Away, Winning the War Against Shame, AIDS, Abuse, and Abandonment. And so there I am right there on the back. And so this is a part of my story that I wrote. And like I said, I'll drop those links in the description of the video. But those are books that I've written. And I also have written another one that's an ebook, and it's called, I think, Michelle. And so it's an ebook. And right now I'm actually completing short stories that I started actually right before the pandemic. I started them. And so I'm going to complete them and actually put them in a book. And it's really stories from, I call them stories from the field. I haven't quite decided on a name yet, but I call them stories from the field. And so there's stories from patients that I took care of. And of course, no names, none of that stuff. But, not I'm not worried about HIPAA, but they're stories from the field. I don't even remember the names, which is a blessing anyway. But the names are made up, but the stories, because people love to share their stories with me, and it's been like that all my life. People just want to share their stories, and so I started writing them down, and I started, writing stories about the stories that they shared. And some of them were amazing stories, to be honest with you. I learned so much from so many of my patients as I took care of them, because I had some patients that, had some really amazing stories, and some that, I had to learn how to, it helped me to learn how to not be judgmental. And that is one of the things. People share all kinds of stories with me, and I am non-judgmental. And I think a part of that is because I've been through so much in my life. I've been through so much, and I've been through it so young, that I had to learn how to handle and deal with things and navigate. Now, some of that, those coping mechanisms for me was repression. So I repressed a lot of stuff. I really did. And I feel like, you know, now some of that stuff is coming up for me to heal. And so this is also what happens to so many of my clients is they start with the stories, and they start recognizing that sometimes the stories are twisted, that they remember, the way that they remember it, or sometimes, the story just needs to be shared and told and released. And sometimes it starts to come up, and this is what I'm finding, is that these stories start to come up after you've repressed them for so many years. Then all of a sudden they start coming up and rising up out of you to be healed, because that is what it takes. It takes being able to understand and listen, and to take those stories and unravel them, find the patterns that are in them. Because sometimes we can look at our stories and we can find the patterns that we have seen throughout our whole life, and sometimes even past lives. Now, I don't go back all into that unless that's something that spirit has for me to do on an individual basis. However, I know that there are things that we have dealt with in our past lives that affect us today, and sometimes just in our past history of ourselves. So, like, I am about to turn 55 years old. And so, some of the things that I went through in my 20s and in my teens, that I repressed because it was too painful to deal with at the time. Now those things are coming up so that I can heal them, so I can transmute them, so that I can love on, little Tammy, or love on young Tammy, and these are things that you have to do in order to start living your life on your terms and not according to anyone else. And now there's another section that I wanted to cover about living your life on your terms too. Now, we all have people that we follow, if you're in this area, especially in the spiritual uh arena. We all have people that we follow that we like, like I love to listen to Michael Beckwith. I love to listen to Reverend Ike. I love to listen to Michelle Blood because she is one of my good friends. I got to interview her. She's amazing. I like to listen to, a lot of different people. I like to listen to Next Level Soul podcast because he has some amazing folks on there. I like to listen to Suzanne Giesman. I have some people that I follow, for, psychic and mediumship and different things. However, I have to take my own word. I have to go inside of me and gather the messages that come from the guidance that I have, my spirit. Sometimes you have to shut off, anything. You have to shut your podcasts off. You have to shut off YouTube. You have to shut off all voices that don't belong to you. There are times like that. And if you don't take that time, then it's going to be really difficult for you to start living your life on your terms. Because the thing is you're not even going to know what your terms are, because when you start taking time to dive deep inside yourself so that you recognize and you realize what actually is going on with you, and what are your terms for you, and what does it feel like, and what does it mean to live life on your terms, without even thinking about what other people think about you, because that really is what this boils down to. Many times is what you are so concerned about what people think about you. Now, for me, I have a box for that. Okay, I was looking to see if I could find it, but I have a box for that, and it's called a Not My Problem box. So I have created this box, and I cut out a hole in the top, and I wrote on it, Not My Problem box. So if there are things that people bring to me or things that I know that are not my problem, I write it down and I fold it up and I stick it inside that box. And that is symbolic for me releasing it. So whatever it is that you need to do in order to release, feeling like, you're caring about what other people think of you. Because you know what I say? What other people think of me is not my concern. It is not my problem. I don't even care, and and that's how I live my life. So you want to really, start really considering your energy and start really tapping in to your energy and embodying those things that you desire and what you want to do to live your life. You know what I'm saying? I hope this makes sense, and I hope that you got something out of it. I just realized I've been talking for 35 minutes, 36 minutes. So, but anyway, I want to invite you to my workshop that I'm doing in about hour and a half. I'm doing a workshop on embracing our spiritual gifts. It is going to be on Eventbrite. I will drop the link in the comments. I think I can do that on here, but it's going to be phenomenal. I'm going to talk about the 4 main spiritual gifts. Going to go into, the chakras that are associated with them. Going to talk about exercises that you can do to help you to enhance them. And then we're going to do a meditation journey at the end, a short one, so it's not super long. So the whole workshop should be about an hour. So I'm super excited to present that workshop. I also have a few different ways that you can work with me. I do angel intuitive with affirmations that includes your affirmations that I record with some royalty free music for you to play on loop if you want to. And that session happens, I send it through the email. So if that's something that you are looking for, I get into connection with my guides and with your guides and bring you messages of love, hope, that you need. And so that is one way. And then I have a 6-week preparing for your crown. It is essentially a mentorship course where we dive in and cover some things that you want to learn and how you want to grow and to help you. We also do healing journeys in all of our sessions. And so that is something that you're looking for. Join me for that. I also have a Get Your Shit Together session. And those sessions I have single sessions, and then they come in 3, 6, and 10 package sessions. So if that's something that you're looking for, reach out to me, send me a message, comment below. I really try to go and listen, respond to the comments. I'll definitely drop the Eventbrite link there. But join me for embracing our spiritual gifts. And if you're on Facebook, I have a group, The Healing Circle. Come and join me there. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I truly do enjoy being here. I'll be doing some more workshops as well coming up. I'm having a good time with them. So I'll be announcing some more, and I'll actually put a post up here as well about the workshops that I'm going to be doing. They're going to be through Eventbrite, so it'll be easy for you to find them and also to sign up. So again, thank you for hanging out. I absolutely enjoy and adore coming and talking to you. I will be back on tomorrow for day 3. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.